Good morning, everyone. Today is episode 2 of how to create your own custom league skins. As usual, the timestamps will be in the description and the video starts right here. Just a couple things I want to say. First, I've learned a lot this past month about making custom skins, and I think I can make my first video better, so I'm considering re-uploading this video and making some changes, but that's not set in stone. And lastly, I want to say thanks to everyone so much for the kind words that they've been providing me, the feedback on the skins and the NASA skin. You know, I've had a rough time IRL lately, but these comments really do make it easier to keep doing what I do as a hobby, so thank you. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. Now, it's worth mentioning that League's audio files aren't stored in the traditional MP3 or WAV formats. They are compressed into WEM files that are then stored in bin files, and we'll need to edit these with the softwares I'm showing here on screen. Links will be in the description as usual, and there are amazing tutorials out there on how to install these and to download these. I can always cover these at a later date, but for now, just install these softwares. I will leave a link in the description for a tutorial as well as the download links. The first thing we want to do is pick our audio and the ability we want to replace it with. However, there are some important things that I should note. Some champion abilities are split into multiple parts that may not be obvious at first. Nasus's Q, for example, is split into multiple: the sound of its cast, a looping background auditory indicator that his Nexus attack is empowered, one for when he uses it, and then one for when he does not, and it should fizzle. It is for these reasons I recommend that you check with the GUI tool that we'll be using to see how your champion's abilities are divided before picking your sounds, though if you really want, we can talk about editing or cutting them later. Last thing before I show you how to use these tools, please, before you open these audio files, turn your audio down. I'm not joking, I'm being 100% serious. This application outputs incredibly loud but detailed previews of the sound effects, and I nearly went deaf when I first used it. At least half of your comfortable listening volume, please. And with that out of the way, let's get started. I already went over this last video, but TLDR, you're going to use Obsidian up here, you're going to extract the champion's file in question, and then, you know, you're being chilling, you got what you need. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to extract the bin file, and it should be inside the folder that we extracted earlier using Obsidian. I'm going to navigate to mine, I put it into the Master Dream Raider Thresh Assets folder. It should be on my desktop underneath the IMS. There we go. Go to the assets folder, and now you're going to want to navigate to the directory that I give you here. You want to go to data, characters, champion name. For us it would be Thresh. You might have multiple like Shaco Boxes or Thresh Lantern. That's perfectly normal. You want to go to skins, and then depending on the skin that you want to edit the audio for, you will need to change which one you pick, but for us it's going to be the base one. So we're going to pick the correlating bin file, open. Then we want to select the audio file. So for this, we're going to go back to the main WAD folder. We're going to want to go to assets this time. Sounds. Well, Y is 2016. SFX. Characters. Champion name. Skins. Based. And then, yeah. Well, depending, of course, once again, which skin you want to edit. For us, it's base. And then you have both of your files, now the audio and the events files. So we're going to select audio. And then events, excuse me. And then you're going to want to click this button up here in the top right called parse files. Now, this is your last warning. Turn your audio down before you mess with any of these audio files. I promise you, they are absurdly loud. And after you click parse files, you want to click this little plus to see a drop down of all the audio files that you're working with. Now, don't worry, the audio is not going to jump out and scare you. You actually have to click this plus icon, then click on it to play it, but the moment you click on it, the audio is going to play. And you can stop playing sounds right here, or you can manually replay a sound here if you click on one. And it's yeah, it's as easy as that. Sorry about that. I didn't realize that the audio wasn't going through my desktop, and I tried to balance it so it doesn't jump scare you guys. Also, ignore the fact that I have a sock on my microphone. This is just to balance the audio a little bit better. I noticed that sometimes when I would like, you know, puh or tuh, like, you know, a big like constant vowel, it would like blow air into the mic. So I did this to help with that because I don't have like a fuzz for my mic. I have to order one. It's whatever. But with that aside, now we can actually look at the audio for our different abilities. I tried to turn it down as best I could for both you guys and myself. In fact, let me just double check. No. I forgot I turned it back up to balance out. No, that's way too loud. Okay, let's take a look at Thresh's Q, for example, because that's what we want to be changing here. This is the Q on cast. As you can tell, this is the wind up for when he throws the Q. And then down here, we have the Q on cast. Of course, this is for when he's recasting to lead. Like I said, this is just showing how sort of subtle but intricate some of the abilities are, because just one of Thresh's abilities would require you to implement 5 different audio files. So this is why sometimes I say that changing audio can be the easiest but most repetitive process there is. And you'll find this for a lot of skins, is that they have abilities that are split into multiple different parts. But I mean, if you're dedicated to the craft and you spend a lot of time doing it, you can make some really cool things happen with these audio files. Like, for example, with the NASA skin I did. When I was working on the NASA skin, I had to have someone screen record the files for me. And I couldn't actually get the audio files myself because I didn't own the skin. Now, thankfully, some really nice people on the Wild Rift Discord were willing to work with me on this. But the thing is, since I can't rip the audio files from the game themselves, and I don't know of anyone that can, the guy would screen record me NASA's audio. But the thing is, when I was working on it, some really nice people on the Wild Rift Discord supplied me with the audio that I needed for the ability. But at the time, I was under the assumption that it was just one audio file, which now looking back on it, I realize it's kind of ridiculous. There's multiple parts at play here, but just take a listen to it real quick. Now, while I appreciate them helping me out, I had to be a bit nitpicky here because there was a lot of problems with this audio file. The first one being, and the most obvious, is that NASA's voice lines are overlaid on top of it, and there's a very obvious background hum of the Wild Rift ambience here. Now, this can be solved by 2 things: relocating where you are on the map, and then disabling the champion's voice lines. Or possibly, if there is in the settings, a way to disable the audio of the Rift itself. Maybe it's ambience like on League. I don't know of the capabilities of Wild Rift, but yeah. So when you're picking your audio files, you have to be aware of things like this. Like, is there any background audio I don't want in there? Can I mitigate that somehow? Do I have to re-record the audio? It's just a lot of moving parts here, because you have, like I said, 4 different parts of the ability. You have like the, let me show you again. You have the cast for NASA's Q, and then you have the background loop for when you're not using it, the woo, 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 woo. And then you have the fizzle if you don't use it, and then you have the actual usage. So just some things I want you guys to keep in mind, and yeah. Sorry, I got off topic there with a little bit of a rant of mine. So back to what I was saying. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to pick the audio file we want to change. Let's just do the Thresh Q on cast. Yeah, not too bad. Okay, so we can choose any one of these files that we want to edit. We can also upload multiple different versions, because as you'll notice in League, sometimes they make different sound effects when they're casting the abilities to keep things fresh. You can implement multiple different versions of your sound effect, or you can implement all the same one if you only have one to work with. Either or works, and most people won't really notice because they don't really listen for the audio in game. So in order to work with this file, first we're going to need to extract it. So click on the file you want to work with, click extract selection, and then choose an output directory. For me, I'm just going to use my desktop for the sake of this tutorial. Now you'll notice that this is not a format that we are capable of working with. We're going to need to convert it. And there is another software we're going to need to use. This is called Foobar, but we can't just use it. We also need to use its plugin. I will link both the plugin and the software itself in the description. And if I can't find them, I'll just upload them to my Google Drive and then link that, because I still have the downloads for these. We're going to open up Foobar. We're going to drop in our WEM file. We're going to right click, and then we're going to click convert, quick convert. And now we're just going to input the info and output the file. And we're also going to pick the name and the directory down here. So for me, once again, I'll just do like a Thresh. Oh, that is backwards. Thresh Q. There we go. Save that as a WAV. Boom. Easy. And now we have our audio file that can be opened by like most editing softwares. Now, you don't need to do this. TLDR, if you don't make the sound effects the same length for certain abilities, especially duration-based or looping ones like NASA's Ultimate, they have a tendency to bug out. My NASA's Dreamweaver skin, for example, when he casts Ultimate. Now, you're more free to experiment without these if you'd like, but don't be surprised if you run into issues or frustrations if you don't have a reference model for the duration or length of your audio files. Now that we have our file is a WAV, we can edit this with a software of our choice. Audacity, Adobe Premiere Pro, After Effects, DaVinci Resolve, any video or audio editing software, you can finally trim the audio to be like a similar length and then like fade it in or out, should be fine. I highly recommend DaVinci Resolve if you don't already have one. It's a free editing software that after a short sign up is very high quality in my opinion. I use it all the time for the price of $0.99 a month or 0 cents a month. It's nice. It's nice. Anyway, once we have converted it, we're going to get our sound effect ready. And for the purposes of this tutorial, I will run you through how I worked with my NASA's Dream Raider audio, since I've yet to find someone kind enough to give me the Dream Raider Thresh audio. Skin Spotlights hasn't responded to me yet on Twitter. So just for the purposes of the tutorial, I will show you how I worked in my Dream Raider NASA's sound effects. Just a note here while I'm showing you my process for how I did the Dream Raider NASA skin, I highly recommend you try to keep some level of organization to your skin files, because I still could have done this better, but even just like with this messy organization I have of just a bunch of folders, this just makes my life so much easier. Like, let's say you have all these different assets for a skin that you're working really hard on, but they're all jumbled together. You just have to search through them, and Windows is slow when you try to use this bar up here. Just trust me, do a little bit of organizing now, you'll thank yourself later, especially when you're digging through with, how big are these files? Yeah, when you're digging through multiple gigabytes of files, you'll thank yourself. When I'm digging through how many files? Over 100,000 files? 5,000 folders? And what's that? It's still going? Yeah, you'll thank me. Anyway, I think it was like 35 gigabytes just for the Dream Raider NASA skin. It's not always going to be that big, but you get the idea. Organized junk. Anyway, let me just show you an example of how you may have to work with this. First off, we have the original abilities from when I downloaded them from the guy's video, like the R. Now, it's worth noting that this audio file right here is perfect because it has minimal background noise, it has no talking. This is perfect to use, we want to use this. However, it has to have a little work done beforehand. You'll notice that NASA's ultimate comes in multiple parts. There's the cast sound effect, there's the looping background for when he ults, like this little music that plays in the background. That's its own sound file, and then we also have the end cast. That's 3 parts right there. So what do? You do something like this. You open up DaVinci Resolve. Like I said, DaVinci software is a fine free software. I highly recommend it if you don't already have one, but if you have a substitute, that's fine. You can also use Audacity. They all work the same. I used Audacity for a large part of this, but this is just easier in the short term. Doesn't really matter the frame rate of the project. So just for the beginning of the ultimate, for example, you would do something like this. Of course, this is very abrupt on its own, so you want to do some finer cleanup, and I recommend doing some just fade in and fade outs. That helps a lot. And you also want to like maybe consider doing like a decibel boost, especially where the impactful parts of the sound effect begins. Also, it's worth noting, another reason why you want a reference file is you want to match the audio level of the file when it came into your editing software, because for example, the thresh cue. Let me take this, drop it in. Now you'll notice the thresh cue is significantly louder than the, you'll notice the thresh cue is significantly louder than the NASA's ultimate here. And that's because I have yet to audio boost, or I should say decibel boost this clip. I haven't turned the volume up. And because of that, this is going to be very quiet in game. It's not going to be noticeable. It's not going to have that impact. There's a lot of little magic tricks we can do here to make this sound better. And I highly recommend you take the effort to do it, because if you're a perfectionist like me, you're gonna come back to this later and you're gonna have to redo it over again. Save yourself the headache now, go the extra mile now, trust me, it's always worth it. First off, we're gonna add the fade in. And then we're also gonna wanna add a fade out. And it's also worth noting, like for example, say the NASA's ultimate clip was like 2 seconds long, but we have a 2-second clip that we wanna fade out, right? It's also worth noting that it doesn't hurt to overextend the ability a little bit and then fade it out and then cut it. But I don't recommend that. I just recommend you stick with this, because once again, if it's a looping ability, you don't want to do that. You can get away with that on on-cast abilities. Don't do that with looping abilities. Not bad. Let's just tweak this a little bit more. That's a little bit abrupt. It's a little too abrupt. Perfect. Okay, now let's change the decibel of this clip, because once again, you're going to want to match the audio levels of the other file. Otherwise, it's going to be very quiet. It's not going to have any impact in game. Let me turn my audio back down. I turned it up and I already regret that. Like, once again, this is going to be very loud on your ears, so while you're editing it, try to turn it down, spare yourself. You're going to want to keep that hearing. You got many more files ahead of you, trust me. Let's pick the impact, which is right about here. No, go back. There we go. Let's up it by, that's pan. Let's up it by about, let's start out with 5 decibels. See how we feel about that. Is that as loud as this? It could be a little bit louder, honestly. It's like his most powerful ultimate. We want it to have some oomph. Let's go up to 10, but no, not 100. Why'd I type 100 again? 10. Even that's a little loud. Let's try a middle ground of 8. I can already tell by looking at it. You don't want it to max out, by the way. If you up the decibel too much, it will cause distortion in the audio. Avoid that. Audacity can actually automatically maximize the audio level without distortion. Another reason why I recommend it, but starting it up, getting used to it again is just a process. I'm just for the sake of this tutorial, man. Just for the sake of the tutorial. Very nice. I like that. And now that is our first audio file that we would work with. This is the Nasus R Ultimate. This is perfect. This is something that we can actually like use. Now all you would want to do is export this as an MP3. I've done this plenty of times. In fact, I already have. See? I've already done it. Of course, this wasn't my first iteration, and it probably wouldn't be my last. This is the final one, if I'm not mistaken. The loop, at least. But yeah, I went through many different iterations of the audio to find out what worked for me. But yeah, just tweak it, mess with it, find something that works for you, and also make sure that you're happy with the final product before you implement it, because then you're gonna have to go through the process of re-extracting it or just re-editing it all together. So yeah. Now that we're done editing our audio here, I'm going to be using the Nasus Q for the sake of this tutorial. We're going to open up a Wise 2016 version, of course. I hope you downloaded it. If not, there will be a link in the description for the download, as well as a tutorial on how to do it. We're going to open up a Wise 2016. We're going to want to create a new project with a name that you'll remember and a directory where you remember it. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to be using my Thresh tutorial one that I created earlier, and I'm also going to be using, I'm going to want to take note of the directory where it's stored in the documents section under Wise Projects Thresh tutorial. We're going to load our project, and then we're going to want to click on this little button, click Import Audio Files, Project, Import Audio Files, Add Files, find the location of the file you want to work with. Let's go for the Nasus Q. Oh, I guess I didn't need to put it on my desktop. Okay, whatever. Nasus Q on cast. Open. Import. Now what we want to do is we want to click Project once more. We want to click Convert All Audio Files. Click OK. And now remember that directory I told you about. You're going to want to navigate to it. And in my case, it was in my Documents folder. There we go. Well, Wise Projects. We want to open up the Thresh tutorial folder. In your case, it will be the name of whatever you named it. And then you want to open the .cache folder, the Windows folder, the SFX folder. And now we have our WEM file. Now, this is fine as is. The file is in the proper format now. It's the .wem format. And we can actually just go ahead and throw this into our GUI bank editor. So let's go ahead and open that back up. That's not where it is. God damn it, Vinny. Let's pick the file we want to change. I'm going to do all of these because, once again, you want to change all of them. We're going to get the default when it rolls the other 4 or other 3. We're going to take the WEM file that we want to swap it with. Going to put them on our desktop. I'll use this one, Nasus R on cast. And then we're going to click Replace WEM Data. We're going to pick the folder of our the file of our choosing. Goodness gracious. Nasus R on cast. And now we're going to click Play Sound. And there you go, you have successfully replaced the audio for your file. You would repeat this process for all the other abilities that you want to change. And then after you're done with that, you want to save as bank.wpk. You want to click save. It's going to ask you if you want to overwrite this file. You would click yes, but I highly recommend you make backups. I'm not going to click save here for obvious reasons because this isn't like a Thresh sound effect. I'm still working on this file for a different project. But it's at this point that you would take this bad boy, you would throw it into League, and then you would give it a test run. And once again, you want to match up the audio as volume level as possible. You want to match it up as duration length as possible. And if you did all that right, it should play as intended. You would take your new WAD file, that in my case, it would be it would be this folder right here, the one that houses all the directories. You would toss this into CS lol, and that would be your mod. And then you would test it in League. And if you did everything right, it should work, but you may run into a few common issues like my audio is not loud enough. Boost it up before you re-import it into the B&K editor. Oh, my audio doesn't line up properly. Make sure you got the moments of impact on your audio correct, or make sure that the duration is proper by lining it up once again with like a reference in your audio editor. But yeah, that's about it. That's how you edit the audio files for League. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I'm going to be releasing another one teaching you guys how to create your own animated logins. Expect that to drop sometime today. It's actually been a couple days since I recorded this audio. I just didn't get around to editing it until today because, you know, the whole Riot Vanguard thing. But I'm still going to try my best to produce content until they announce whether or not they're going to go through with that. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I appreciate it. I also have a Patreon linked in the description. That's an easy way to support me, but not necessary. A subscription and a view is more than enough. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.